Thank you so much, Council. That was one of the most difficult times on Council that I think all of us have experienced. And thank you to those of you who stayed. Unfortunately, we lost quite a lot of our group, but we had a chance to take a breath. And I believe Councillor McKay.
Yes. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. I think it was important for us to be authentic in our delivery of this. So I would like to move that we ask the mayor to write a letter to the federal government urging an immediate call for the cessation of war. We support an immediate humanitarian truce. The town of Wolfville supports peace for all.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Do I have a seconder for that, please?
I can second that.
Councillor Palmer. Is there any discussion by members of council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that's passed. I will draft a letter this week and I will share it with council and I will send it. Some of the people who were here, we have letters and emails for them. I actually just texted Joe Raffi and told him that we were going to move a motion and I'm sure he will share that with people he's probably still with. Thank you so much for that, council. That was difficult, not as difficult as it is, I think, for the members who were with us tonight. In our haste, we did not add that we do have one more item of new business, D, info report, VIC cost breakdown. So that was sent to us and that just got added. I'm sure I missed all sorts of proper procedure there. All right. Motions and recommendations from Committee of the Whole, November 7th. The first one is first reading of the nuisance party bylaw. Would somebody like to move that motion, please? Deputy Mayor?
I would move the council give first reading to the amended nuisance party bylaw, chapter 97, as attached to RFD 059-2023.
Right, and a seconder, please. Councillor Ingham, thank you. Is there any discussion on that item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. Could I have a mover for RFD 061-2023 policy making and management policy?
I'll move that.
Councillor Ingham, thank you.
I would move that council approve the amended policy 110-007- policy making and management policy as attached to RFD 061-2023.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Councillor McKay, thank you. Are there any comments from council? Questions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. Number C, RFD 060-2023 Code of Conduct for Elected Municipal Officials Policy. A mover, please. Councillor Elliott.
I would move that council approve the amended policy 110-011 Code of Conduct for Elected Municipal Officials Policy as attached to RFD 060-2023.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Are there any comments or questions on that item? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. The next three I'm going to send to you, Councillor Butler, as the chair of the audit report.
Councillor Palmer, would you please read those as a member of the audit?
I would move that council appoint Grant Thornton as the town's auditor for the fiscal year ending March 31st, 2024.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Ingham. Questions? I see lights on.
Oh, sorry.
All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? He's going to read the next three. Councillor Palmer.
I would move that council approve the attached revised low income property tax exemption policy number 140-003.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Elliott. Are there any comments or questions? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And finally, Councillor Palmer, RFD 054-2023 tax sale policy.
I would move that council approve the attached draft tax policy number 140-009.
Thank you. A seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, thank you. Questions or comments? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, that's passed. And our final business from Committee of the Whole, mover for RFD 062-2023 council appointments to committees.
I'll do that.
Thank you, Councillor Ingham.
I would move that council approves the council committee appointments as outlined in RFD 062-2023.
And a seconder, please. Councillor Palmer, thank you. Any questions or comments, council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's passed. And now motions and recommendations from the public hearing that we just held. I guess Deputy Mayor would be you.
Okay. I would move that council,
I'm sorry, Devon.
I just have a slightly different motion.
Oh, okay.
Just coming out of that meeting, sorry. It is here. It just, sorry, it just talks about the timeline.
Okay, thank you.
okay, thank you, Director Lay. So I would move that council approve the development agreement at 234 Main Street, PID 55278626, to construct a 10-unit dwelling, and that clause 5183 be amended to allow a 5-year completion timeline.
Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Ingham. Are there any questions of staff or any comments? Councillor Palmer?
Oh,
Nobody? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That's passed. Yeah, we have new business, and who would like to move the appointment of the
I'll do that.
deputy mayor?
I'll do that.
Deputy mayor,
You want
who can stay deputy mayor until the end of this meeting.
Thank you, thank you. I would move that Councillor Wendy Elliott be appointed as deputy mayor by acclamation effective November 22nd, 2023. That's tomorrow, Wendy.
I'll
Yes,
second that motion.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It's your job tomorrow. And civic addressing bylaw, these two, I don't know, we'll say deputy mayor, kind of planning.
I would move the council give second reading to the civic addressing bylaw, chapter 110.
Councillor Elliott seconds it. Are there any questions or comments questions of staff, comments of council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's passed. And RFD 050-2023 building bylaw, chapter 65, second reading.
I would move the council give second reading to the updated Willfield building bylaw, chapter 65.
A seconder, please. Councillor McKay, thank you. Any questions of staff, comments of council? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's passed. And the info report, Alex, did you want to, was it your plan to present or? Okay, does anyone from council have any questions of Director D'Souza or CAO? Maybe you have a comment?
No, just wanted to note, so as per our discussion at budget, we committed to bringing this back because if there was any thought to change with moving forward with the VIC, we need that we need you to give us direction now before we go to tender. So the information's there. So if council wants to change course, let us know. And if not, we'll proceed with tender as discussed. If you need Alex to hit any of the highlights, I know you received it this morning. He can certainly do that, but
Maybe he could just hit the highlights of
That would be helpful.
okay?
Or could you pull that for me, please?
You want the report or the attachments up?
Just the report for now. Thank you. Just give me 1 second here, please.
I hate it when that thing comes up every time you open up your email now.
So just a very brief summary of what I've prepared here. What I did was I went back into the history that I had access to here. And I put together sort of a brief timeline going back to 2020. Just showing that the history of how this project has evolved. My understanding is the project goes back to at least 2016, and I didn't really have access to much of the material going back that far in the time I had to prepare this. So I've put together a summary of some of the directions this project has taken. It's gone to tender a couple of times. It's been over budget both times. We've tried the design bid build approach and have not had any luck with that. So I'm not gonna talk much about the rationale or the project scope. I think everybody has a pretty good idea of the project scope now. Just to hit on maybe one or two of the highlights. The project has become basically a complete tear down and rebuild because of the assessment work we did through this process, revealing that the existing building's foundation is not in very great shape. The building itself, the current building itself was built as a 3-season building. It's uninsulated. There are numerous problems with the building's plumbing. It would make it really difficult to try and bring that existing building in any form up to modern accessibility and energy standards. So the decision was made to direct our consultants to establish a design for demolishing and reconstructing the building. Now we've done the layout, the conceptual layout in-house, and the site plan for the building in-house. And I know that was one thing that was not included in the original materials provided to council. So I've added this as an attachment to the info report. This is a brief look at the site plan here. And I can talk a little bit about that as well if anyone is interested. Or you guys can look at this information on your own and feel free to send me an email or give me a call, and I'd be happy to talk about it some more.
Do members of council with the pictures up have any questions? Councilor McKay?
That is the little, what is the one with triangles? That's the concrete pad that goes out to the splash pad that needs to be done for accessibility purposes, correct?
It is, yeah.
And the two other things are trees, I see, yeah.
This is the planned
Right.
sidewalk to connect to the sidewalk along Willow Ave. Along this side of the building, you've got your doors to the new change rooms. And along the back side of the building, you have a door to one of the new accessible washrooms. The other accessible washroom would be under the covered canopy area. I'm just gonna flip back to the report here. I talked about the procurement approach and why we decided to go with a design build approach rather than a design bid build. I think we've seen some of the challenges with the budget and certainly the schedule now at this point. Going with a traditional design bid build approach where a consultant does the full design package and specification package, and we put that package out to tender and a contractor bids on it to do the construction. Where we're really gonna be limited in how much information we get from that process before going to tender for construction. Similar to the time this has gone to tender before, you go to tender with a design and you can do the best job you possibly can to estimate how much that will cost. But the means analysis for doing the estimates for these types of builds can only go so far. They don't necessarily consider market conditions or compressed schedule. So where we're going now as a design build approach, we're basically inviting contractors to give us a proposal with our schedule and our budget limitations. What can we do to achieve this concept, this goal? What can we do for the money we have in the time we have? Can we do it all? Do we have to delete this or that? It's a much more collaborative approach versus the traditional design bid build. And I'd be happy to, this is really outside of the scope of the budget discussions, but I'd be happy to talk more about that with anybody who wants more information.
I gather what staff are looking for, both you, so you can tender, and also staff putting together the budget, is to know that council's still on side with this direction. And
Right, and I'll skip right to the financial implications, because that was the crux of the discussion when we spoke last about this, and there were some questions about different scenarios and what our funding is. So the original application for the funding, the ACOA funding we now have for this project, it had a original estimated budget of $1.532 million. And that was for the Welcome Center reconstruction, the East End Gateway parking lot, and reconfiguring Willow Ave. So adding the new parking, additional sidewalks, that work we did back in 2021. That is what is referred to as the East End Gateway project. It's those three major components. Obviously Willow Ave is done now. The East End Gateway parking lot is also a project that's in progress now as well. And what we're talking about here is the Welcome Center. So that $1.5 million was the original estimate before the budget was prepared. What we ended up with was a $1.24 million approved budget for the total of those three projects. And I did an analysis on the funding breakdown of what the approved percentages for each category were, which I have in some tables here in the subsequent pages. But with that analysis, going from the original $1.5 million budget, which gave us up to $575,000 in funding, the approved budget gives us $462,000 of funding from ACOA based on that split, that percentage.
so what is the town's amount, the tax amount? Is that in that?
Right, it is. So, and that's what I have presented here for each of the three major components of the project. I'm not sure if can you guys see that well enough on
That's better.
the TV? So I'll skip the Willow Ave and the East End parking lot because that's not really what we're here to talk about. I'll come back to that later because there could be some implications to those projects based on the direction here. But what we have for the Welcome Center, so in the original funding application, it was estimated that the Welcome Center would cost $800,000 to replace. And then there's $75,000 here for accessible transition space, which is that big wraparound sidewalk and some other elements at
Looks
the
like a
building.
C. Oh, is it conch? Is that how you pronounce that? Every time I see that, that's what I think of.
So what we ended up with for the Welcome Center project was an approved total budget of 600,000. So that original 75,000, I've left that as it is. I didn't alter that because that has a 46.8% assistance rate on the ACOA funding, which leaves the remainder at $525,000 strictly for the building itself, which has an assistance rate of 32.6%. So what that breaks down to based on our approved budget numbers here is funding amounts of 171,000 toward the building and about 35,000 for the site work, which leaves these amounts in the far right column as what's payable by the taxpayers of Wolfville. And then I'll skip to, I've got some explanations here of what's in all these tables, if anyone cares to read those. But what was asked was the scenarios. So I've done a couple scenarios here for the Welcome Center. The scenario we're operating on right now is the as budgeted scenario, which is the second table down. And that it's all the same values that you saw on the previous page of what's payable by the taxpayer essentially, and what's being provided by the funder. I included for maybe for fun here the original application amounts and what would have been payable by the taxpayer and the funder in that scenario. And then going down to a reduced scope scenario. So I talk a little bit about that elsewhere in the report. Basically taking the interior office area out of the footprint of the design for the building will knock approximately $150,000 off the overall build. And that being said, this is what the results are. This is what we're left with for funding because the funding is based on the amount we spend. And this is what's left payable by the town. So a little bit over $100,000 less to take the Welcome Center office out of the building. And then I've presented at the very bottom here a walkaway scenario, which is just a summary of what would then become sunk costs. This is what we've spent to date to do the investigations, to obtain the contracts, the services, the RFP development, and the foundation design. So this would be what is left payable by the town in that scenario. So one thing I want to touch on here while I'm talking about the different scenarios is the funding application was for a reconstructed Welcome Center and changing the scope of that, changing to a reduced scope scenario, just washrooms and change rooms instead of a full Welcome Center is a material change to the approved funding, to the funding agreement. So that change we'd have to go back to the funders and request approval for that change. And we've already gone back to the funders, I think at least twice, asking for material changes to the approved funding agreement in the form of extensions, timeline extensions. So if we go back and ask for a change now, and they say no, there is a possibility, especially with the walkaway scenario, there's a possibility that we not only lose the funding for the Welcome Center portion of this work, but we also lose the funding that's going towards our parking lot reconstruction, which is $185,000, give or take. And the funding, the approximately $70,000 is funding we've already received for Willow. I can't speak to the likelihood of whether or not they'd ask for that money back, but it is a possibility. So I just want to put that out there.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer?
The couple questions. So one, you talked about the paving, the parking lot, you hope to do that this year, but it's over tender already.
So we tendered that relatively early in terms of the construction season, with the thought that maybe we would get better prices going this early. People could, a contractor could put in a bid and start work. The issue we had is everybody's busy right now, and a lot of my contractor contacts didn't even know that was out to tender because they're not expecting civil works contracts coming out in October. It's not wasn't the right time, so we're going to go back to tender in January, February with that.
And I'll call it the accessible walkway, that's concrete.
It is, yeah.
How many yard of concrete is 75,000? Because concrete is endlessly.
Well, it's not just the 75,000 is for more than just the.
Engineering, it's site work and stuff, but it doesn't sound like a lot. I'm getting that sounds low.
Yeah, and I mean, the $75,000 is just an earmarked number that was in the original application to provide accessible transition space. It's not necessarily for one specific component or the other. It just forms a part of the $600,000 budget that we have that's funded at a certain rate. So as long as we're able to provide in the overall project the accessible transition space, it doesn't matter if we spend $25,000 on it, 75,000, 100,000.
That's my next question. So if it comes in and that portion of it is 100,000, are we going to get paid more or a higher percentage, or are we capped off?
It's going to be a lump sum bid, so we're not even gonna know how much that portion of it is.
But a COLA, that's maxing out the COLA then, so.
It would, yeah.
But we have, your numbers there with the 75,000 has maxed the COLA out.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKay?
Thanks. So we have a budget of $600,000 and we're gonna go back and forth with a person who's gonna bid on this to come back to something that looks something like this document, this diagram on the page.
Yeah, so we, in the request for proposals package, we have provided our site plan, our layout plan that we did for the building, which I think I have on here as well. This,
right.
We've provided this as the project parameters essentially to the design bid or the design build bidder, and told them this is what we want to build. We've sent them the renders and everything, and said to them, this is our what we're building. This is our budget, and this is our timeline. So how much of this can you do for 600,000? And if you can't do it all, what do we have to take out?
Okay.
And if we have to take out anything that's significant, which I don't suspect we will have to,
okay.
I'll come back here and tell you guys just that.
Okay. So I think the crux of this was what is going to be the incremental difference between just doing accessible washrooms and doing the whole plan. And if I see your Welcome Center reconstruction and then your Welcome Center reconstruction reduced at our sunk cost, my guess is somewhere in the vicinity of $70,000 more to do the whole shoot and shebang as opposed to just doing the portions we want. So that is, to me, on $1.5 million is a really small incremental amount to do the whole shoot and shebang. Okay, thank you. That was the crux of the discussion I was trying to get to. And I
For
think
summary, that's helpful.
right? Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. I do want to attach the disclaimer that I used typical square foot build costs for that to try and figure out what the difference would be there, so.
I think that's fair, reasonable.
Okay.
I think
So-
that's what we wanted to get to.
So
Well,
we're good to stay the course. There's no motion.
Yeah.
No motion.
Yeah.
Budget, but we just wanted to do a check-in, so.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just,
Okay.
yeah, perfect.
I just-
Yeah, that was good. Thanks,
Yeah,
Alex.
If anyone has any questions about what's in that report, I'm happy to chat with you guys more about anything in there
Okay, so that being said, when we will have this tender out, Alex?
tomorrow.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
I I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank Director D'Souza for this additional information. It was very clear, well presented, and I found it very, very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I think it was exactly what we were,
Yeah.
what we were, where we were chasing, yeah.
Who would like to move an adjournment of this meeting? Thank you,
So
Counselor
moved.
Palmer, and to seconder, please. Counselor Ingham, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? This council is adjourned. I would like, if council could stay, this is not council business.